The last credit the cold wind blew across the broken metal streets of Outpost 9. It was a forgotten mining planet where hope had died long ago. Joran walked slowly, his coat full of holes. His boots falling apart, he was a middle-aged man, tired, with gray in his beard and scars on his hands. Once, he had dreams of being a pilot or a hero, but now he was just trying to survive in his pocket. He had one single credit chip, enough to buy a meal or a warm blanket, but not both. He looked around, hungry and freezing. Wondering what to do, crowds moved through the market, selling scrap, wires, and black market tech. He passed a stall selling hot broth, the smell making his stomach growl. But just as he reached for the credit chip, something caught his eye. In the corner, near a wall, sat a strange woman. She wasn't human. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes glowed like silver moons. She wore thin, torn clothes and hugged herself tightly, shivering from the cold. People passed her by without looking. To them, she was just another alien refugee, lost and forgotten. Joran stopped. He stared at her, then looked at his credit chip, his stomach twisted with hunger. But something inside him whispered, "Help her." He turned away, tried to walk, but her eyes met his, and in that one moment, he felt a strange pull. Not fear, not love, something deeper, like connection, like a forgotten promise. With a deep sigh, Joran walked to a stall nearby and bought a thermal blanket. It was all he had, but he gave it to her without a word. She looked at the blanket, then at him, her lips trembling. "Why?" she asked, in a soft voice, almost like music. Joran didn't answer. He just sat beside her and said, "Cold's worse when you're alone." Minutes passed. The woman wrapped herself in the blanket and leaned against the wall. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Then, slowly, she fainted, her body sliding sideways. Joran caught her before she hit the ground. He looked around. Nobody offered to help. He cursed under his breath and lifted her up. "She's lighter than she looks," he muttered. Then he carried her through the dirty alleys to his small shelter. His place was a broken storage pod turned into a home. Inside, it was cold and dark, but at least there were walls. He laid her on his bed and wrapped her tightly in the blanket. Then he sat down beside her and watched her breathing. She looked peaceful now, like a sleeping child. But something about her felt strange, too quiet, too still. That night, Joran tried to sleep, but strange dreams filled his mind. He saw stars burning, galaxies spinning backward. He heard voices whispering in a language he didn't understand, and in the center of it all, he saw her, the alien woman, standing in fire, her eyes glowing bright. She looked at him and whispered, "They're coming." Joran woke up with a gasp, sweat on his forehead. He turned and saw her sitting up on the bed. Awake and watching him, her eyes were calm, but there was something behind them, like a storm waiting to break. "You gave me warmth," she said. "That is rare here." "Who are you?" Joran asked, his voice shaking. "My name is Slari," she replied, "and I owe you more than you know." Before he could ask more, she stood up and walked to the door. "Wait, where are you going?" he asked. "I must return before they find me," she said, "but I will come back." Then she was gone. Like a shadow in the night, Joran sat alone in silence, his stomach still empty, his credit still gone. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. He looked at the bed where she had slept, the blanket still warm, the air still holding her scent. And deep inside, something had changed. A fire had been lit, small but alive, outside. The night howled above the sky, stars blinked some brighter than before, and in the darkness, something watched, something hunting, something dangerous, but Joran didn't know that yet. All he knew was that he had given his last credit to save someone who might not be human, and somehow He felt it was the best decision he'd made in a long time. The next morning, Joran woke up to silence. The bed was empty. The blanket folded. Neatly, he looked around the shelter, but she was gone. His heart sank. Had she run away in the night? He stepped outside, rubbing his eyes. Cold wind blew across the dusty alley. Then he froze. Sitting by the door was a small box sealed tight, and on top of it, a warm sandwich wrapped in cloth. Joran looked left, then right, no one in sight. He picked up the food, opened it slowly. Real meat, not printed protein, and still warm. She came back, he whispered to himself. But how? Where did she find this? That evening, as he lit his small heater, the door creaked. She stepped inside quietly, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Joran stood up, confused. "You left," he said. "Then you came back." "I said I would," Slari replied. Her voice calm, she walked over to the heater and held out her hands. It flickered once, then burned brighter. Joran stared. "You did that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she sat on the floor and looked up at him. "I didn't come here by choice," she said. "They were chasing me, and I crashed near this outpost." "Who?" he asked. "Bounty hunters." "Worse," she said. Softly, "Scientists from a place that should not exist." She leaned her head back. Eyes closed. "My kind was made, not born," she continued. "I escaped before they could take what's inside me." Joran sat down across from her. His hands trembled, but not from fear. He didn't understand everything, but he knew one thing: she wasn't just any alien. "You're not safe here," he said. "No one is," she replied. "Because they're coming." Just then, the walls of the shelter flickered with faint light. Strange glowing symbols appeared like stars forming patterns. Joran gasped. "What is that?" "It's part of me," she said. "It reacts too." "Strong feelings? You're scared?" "No," Joran said, standing slowly. "I've lived with fear for years. This? It's something else." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the wind howled. Then she looked at him and said, "You didn't have to help me." Joran gave a small smile. "Kano," he said. "But I did." From the shadows, something moved far across the street. An unseen figure watched the shelter through a lens. They spoke into a device. "Target located," they said. "Prepare to move." Back inside, Slari touched the wall, and the symbols vanished. She looked at Joran with a calm face. "They found me," she whispered. Joran didn't move. He just looked at her and said, "Then let's make sure they don't take you." The next day, the market was quieter than usual. People spoke in whispers. Glancing at holoscreens posted across every corner, Joran walked through the stalls with his hood up. He froze when he saw the image on the screen. It was her Slari. The same silver eyes, the same pale blue skin under her face. The message read, "Wanted alien fugitive, 500,000 credits, dead or alive." His heart raced. The whole outpost was looking for her now. 500,000 credits. More than most people would see in their entire life. He turned away quickly. But not fast enough. A merchant looked at him, then at the screen, then back at him. Joran walked faster, then ran. Back in the shelter, Slari sat by the heater. Her hands folded when he rushed in. She looked at him calmly. "You saw it?" she said, without asking. "Why didn't you tell me you were worth 500,000 credits?" Joran shouted, "Would it have changed what you did for me?" She asked. He hesitated. "No," he said quietly, "but it would have explained the dream." She tilted her head. "What dream?" Joran sat down slowly. He told her about the burning stars, the whispers, and how his body felt stronger each day. Slari looked troubled. "You're changing," she said, "because you touched me when I was weak, my energy. It links with those who show kindness. What does that mean?" Joran asked. "It means she said. You're not fully human anymore. He stared at his hands. The scars were fading, and his skin looked younger. Was it a gift or a curse? Before he could speak, the shelter shook. A loud voice came from outside. Open the door, it said, or we'll break it down. Joran looked at her. She didn't flinch. Instead, she stood up slowly and touched his chest. You must choose now, she said. Turn me in and walk away rich, or stay, and become something the stars themselves fear. Outside footsteps approached. Weapons clicked. Joran's hand moved to war. The door then stopped. He turned. To her, no one ever gave me anything worth protecting, he said. But you. You gave me a reason to fight. He grabbed his old blaster from under the bed. You said I'm changing, he said with a grin. Let's show them what I'm becoming. Slari's eyes glowed, and the symbols returned on the walls. This. Time brighter, sharper, more alive, outside. Mercenaries raised their weapons, inside. A man and an alien woman stood side by side, ready for war. Asterisk smoke filled the air as Joran and Slary ran through the narrow alleyways. Behind them, alarms blared and red lights flashed across the metal walls. Outpost 9 was awake now. It was hunting them. We can't stay here, Joran said, breathing hard. They'll come back with more. They always do, Slary replied calmly. Her voice steady, her steps graceful, like she didn't fear anything. Joran led her through an old maintenance tunnel. It hadn't been used in years, but he knew every bolt and panel. He had once hidden there from debt collectors and bounty hunters. Now he was hiding with someone worth more than the outpost itself, inside the tunnel. He stopped and turned to her. I know a guy, he said. Old smuggler owes me a favor. He might have a ship. Then we'll need fuel and a nav core, she said. Joran blinked. You know how to fly a ship? I was built to fly more than that, she said, not smiling, just honest. They reached a broken hatch and climbed up into a junkyard. Slary raised her hand, and the broken lights above sparked back to life. Joran whistled. Remind me not. To make you angry, they found the nav core inside a wrecked scout ship. But just as Joran pulled it free, a voice shouted, Drop it! Now? They turned, and 3 guards stood on the ledge above. Weapons aimed. Don't move, one said. We want the alien, not you. Joran stepped in front of her. You're not getting her. He growled. The guards laughed. Then the air around Slary shimmered. The ground cracked beneath her feet. Her eyes turned from silver to bright white without touching them. She lifted all 3 guards into the air. They screamed, their weapons flying from their hands. Should I stop them? She asked Joran, voice echoing unnaturally. He stared in shock. No, he said finally. Let them go. She dropped them, and they ran, terrified. Joran looked at her, his hands shaking. What? Are you? Slary stepped closer. I'm not sure anymore, she whispered. But I feel safer with you than I ever did in space. They carried the nav core to the smuggler's hideout. An old spaceport below the mountain ridge, there. Joran found Drex, a grumpy old man with a metal arm and a love for danger. You brought trouble, Drex said, lighting a smoke. Big trouble? Can you get us off this rock or not? Joran asked, tossing him a small data chip. Drex looked at Slary, then at the stars above. I can, he said, but once we take off, there's no coming back. Joran looked at Slary. She nodded. We're not looking back. That night, as they prepared the ship, Joran sat alone. He touched his chest. His heartbeat was different now. Stronger. Slary joined him. Sitting quietly beside him, You've changed, she said. So have you, he replied. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder. Above them, the stars shimmered. Below them, shadows moved. A larger force had heard the alarm, and it was coming. The stars above Outpost 9 slowly faded behind the clouds of smoke and engine dust. Inside the smuggler's ship, Joran checked the systems while Slari watched silently. Her eyes no longer glowed. But something inside her had gone quiet. Drex. The old smuggler walked in with a grin. "Ship's ready," he said. "But we've got a window of 10 minutes before the patrols scan this sector." Joran nodded. "We'll be gone in 5. As Drex turned to leave, Slari stepped forward. "You don't trust him," she said. Joran looked at her, surprised. "He helped me before." He replied, "He's just." Rough around the edges, Slari stared at the door for a moment, then whispered, "He's lying." Before Joran could ask what she meant, a loud bang echoed through the ship. Doors locked, lights turned red. Warning, containment field activated, the AI announced. Joran grabbed his blaster and rushed toward the cockpit. But it was too late. Drex stood behind the console, holding a shock rifle. "You should have taken the credits, Joran," he said. "This one's worth more than both our lives." Joran raised his blaster. "I trusted you," he said, voice shaking. "And that's why you lose," Drex replied. He pulled the trigger, but Slari moved faster. A wave of energy blasted out from her body. Shattering the floor beneath her, the ship shook violently, alarms blaring. Drex flew backward into a wall, dropping his weapon, unconscious. Joran stared at her, stunned. Slari's body flickered like a dying star. Light pulsing under her skin, she dropped to her knees, breathing heavily. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," she whispered, "but they keep trying to break me." Joran knelt beside her. "I should have seen it," he said softly. "He never helps without a price." The ship systems rebooted. "You need to fly," Slari said, holding her side. "Get us out of here before more come." Joran lifted her into the co-pilot seat, then jumped into the pilot's chair and fired up the engines. The ship rose through the dust clouds, fire trailing behind it. Drex's hideout exploded below them, the result of Slari's energy shock. Above the atmosphere, they entered deep space. Joran set the ship on autopilot and turned to her. Her eyes were dim, and her skin had cracks of glowing red. "What's happening to you?" he asked. She reached out and touched his chest. "I gave too much," she said, "to save you." Joran grabbed her hand. "Don't fade now," he said. "We're just getting started." She smiled faintly. "Not fading," she whispered, "just changing." And then she closed her eyes, her breathing slow but steady. Joran looked out into space. No map, no destination, just stars and shadows. And behind them, across thousands of kilometers. The bounty signal blinked again, this time intercepted by someone far more dangerous. Asterisk, the stars outside the ship blurred as they entered hyperspace. Joran sat beside Slari, who lay silent, glowing faintly beneath a thin sheet. Her body flickered with unstable energy, like a star trying not to explode. He didn't know where to go, but the ship did. Before passing out, she had touched the controls. Now the navigation showed a strange set of coordinates. Sector X-22 restricted space, black labyrinth. Joran stared at the screen. "Is this where you were made?" He whispered. Hours passed in silence when the ship dropped out of hyperspace. A massive structure floated ahead. Not a planet, not a station, something in between. A black, rotating lab hidden in the dark edge of the galaxy. Joran armed himself, placed Slari in a stasis pod, and entered the lab alone. Inside, there were no guards, no alarms, only silence. The hallways smelled like metal and forgotten pain. Then he heard voices, soft and cold. "We didn't expect you to return." Her to us, a figure stepped forward, dressed in white armor, face hidden. "We call her Project Ember," the figure said. "She wasn't made to feel, only to destroy." "I'm not giving her back," Joran growled. The lights dimmed, and glass walls lit up around him. Inside each chamber floated creatures, filed versions of Slari, some twisted, some crying, some still alive but broken. You think you saved her? The voice said, but she infected you. She passed her flame into your blood. Joran raised his blaster. I don't care, he said. She gave me purpose. From above, robotic arms dropped, grabbing him. They injected something cold into his veins. He screamed, but then something inside him pushed back. His skin glowed, his eyes lit up. Slari's energy awakened inside him. He broke free, crashing through walls, fire pouring from his hands. Alarms blared, red lights flashed. The lab came alive. Joran fought through rooms of machines, guards, and creatures. He was no longer just a man. He was fire, rage, and love. All at once, he reached the core chamber where Slari was suspended in a glowing cage. Her body was nearly faded, her voice weak in his mind. I'm sorry, she whispered. I gave you my light. Joran touched the cage, and it shattered with a blast of heat. He caught her in his arms as the walls cracked. The lab was falling apart. Consumed by the power they both carried, together, they stepped into the chaos. Side by side, fire burst from their bodies, and the lab shook like it was crying. Monsters were freed, machines melted. No more experiments, no more pain at the end. As explosions tore the lab apart, Slari looked at him and smiled. My flame will always find you. She vanished into light, not dying, just returning to the stars. Joran stood in the ruins, glowing brighter than the burning walls. Alone but not broken. He looked up, and for the first time, the stars blinked back at him. Joran stood in the silence of deep space. Behind him, the lab was gone, reduced to stardust. Ahead of him, only darkness and stars. He drifted for days, alone in the ship. No destination, no voice, only memory. Only her. Slari was no longer by his side. But she was not gone. Her warmth still moved through him. Her energy whispered through every cell in his body. Joran had changed. He didn't need food as often or rest. His blood glowed faintly under his skin. He could hear the hum of stars when he closed his eyes on a small moon near the edge of a quiet system. He landed. There were miners there. Workers, forgotten people, just like he once was. They were sick, tired, cold. Joran stepped out and held up his hands. Heat flowed from his fingers. Machines began to work again. The wind became warm. The sick stood up. Healed by his presence, they didn't ask where he came from. They called him the Warm Man, a traveler with fire in his heart and stars in his voice. He never asked for payment. He stayed until the lights came back, until hope returned. Then he moved on, across systems, across worlds. He brought light to places no one cared about. And every time he touched someone's hand, he left behind a little warmth. But at night, when he rested under alien skies, he heard her Slari's voice. Soft like starlight, keep going, she would say. You carry more than fire now. One day, on a quiet desert world, a girl approached him. Maybe 10 years old, with pale blue skin. Her silver eyes sparkled like mirrors. She didn't speak, just held out her hand. In her palm was a small pendant, made of crystal, shaped like a flame. She left something behind. The girl said. Joran knelt in front of her, stunned. The girl placed the pendant in his hand, and for a moment he saw her again, Slari, smiling among the stars, not gone, just waiting. Joran stood, eyes full of tears. He didn't cry. He looked at the stars, then at the girl. I guess it's time, he said. She nodded. Together, they walked toward his ship. The stars above shimmered brighter than usual, as if welcoming him home. And somewhere, far beyond light and time, a voice whispered, sometimes one act of kindness can light the entire universe.